FinTechTalk, the live webinar with no presentations, no PowerPoint, just talk.
Tech Talk. I'm your host, Charles Orton-Jones. Today we're looking at financial crime. We're looking in particular at how to upgrade and overhaul your systems to combat financial crime. Now, as ever, we've assembled a world-class panel, 3 experts with long experience in combating crime and in developing IT systems to beat the fraudsters. So without further ado, let's meet our panel. Our first guest is Swagatam Sen. He is Head of Innovation, Compliance Analytics at HSBC. Swagatam, so good to see you. Just tell us a little bit about your role.
Hi, Charles, and thanks for this opportunity to chat. As you said, I'm from HSBC, and right now I'm heading the innovation department within compliance analytics function globally. So my role looks into primarily digital transformation of the entire compliance analytics division, and we are right now going through a journey of 3 to 5 years of completely overhauling the way we used to operate as part of compliance analytics.
Fantastic. That's an extraordinary role. Our second guest is Grace Ogedengbi, who is Head of Financial Crime Operations at Bank ABC. Grace, great to see you. Perhaps you could just tell us about yourself, Grace. What exactly is it that you do?
I'm Grace Ogedengbi. And I head the Financial Crimes Operations Unit in Bank ABC. I'm responsible for our London and Europe office, Paris, Milan, and Frankfurt. And the main activities that I cover is the mitigation of financial crime risk in our trade finance business.
Fantastic, it's a great role. And our third guest is Holly Sayce-Philippi, who is the CEO of Alessa. Alessa is one of the world's leading suppliers and creators of software for anti-money laundering and compliance, suppliers to some of the the biggest and best organizations in the world. So great to have you with us. Perhaps you could just tell us something about the company.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Look forward to the discussion today. Alessa, like you said, a software solution in the market that really focuses on AML compliance, fraud risk management, anything within that compliance spectrum, really focused on supporting all of the financial institutions around the globe, managing through their compliance programs.
Fabuloso. It is an extraordinary panel. Perhaps we could just kick off the discussion with a look at a recent news story that I think just really sums up the scale of fraud in the UK. And the numbers here are huge. If you're not familiar with the scale of financial crime, pretty shocking. I think we're looking at a total of 1.2 billion lost to fraud in the UK alone last year. Check card and bank account fraud, number 1, 3 times as much as the second type of fraud, online shopping and auctions fraud. Swagatam, these numbers seem astronomical. 1.2 billion lost to fraud. I mean, how big is this problem of financial crime?
No, I think if you look into overall remit of financial crime and consider all of the different types of financial crime, and fraud being definitely one of the major ones within that bracket, but there are several others. So I think it is a massive industry, and it is growing. It is growing on top of all of the trends that we have seen, using some of the ever-growing technology stack. And it's a constant evolving challenge that we have to face as part of banks and fintechs and everyone really in the ecosystem. In terms of the actual scale, I have seen over my 18 years of working in that domain, I have seen it change, and the type of the challenge also change. I remember the early days of primarily counterfeit fraud, where you used to sort of duplicate your credit card. From those days into the mules and more technology oriented and crypto frauds. the change has been amazing, and it's a serious concern that all of us face.
Fantastic. Grace, how do you see it? I mean, I was going to suggest, are we losing the war? But it seems more like some sort of just very high equilibrium, lots of fraudsters, lots of money being spent. How would you categorize the situation of financial crime in banking today?
I won't say that we're losing the war, but what I would say is this. For bank to win the war against fraudsters, we need to keep evolving in terms of technological advancement, because the fraudsters, they're making use of technological advancement. So for banks and financial institutions to actually win the war and ensure that they stay on top and become relevant, they need to adopt the use of AI technology as well, definitely.
Nice. Absolutely. Holly, how does that sound? I mean, my assumption is that the legacy systems are just not going to be as good at combating this stuff. They're hard to update, they're hard to integrate. I mean, is part of this a problem with banks and legacy systems that are not capable of dealing with the modern fraud threat?
Yeah, look, I think it's a little bit of that, right? And just what Swagatom said, right, is the evolution in the market, it's accelerated extremely fast. I'm, without dating myself, I remember the days of duplicate credit cards and those type of things. But if you think about over the last, few years where just the digitalization and access to different systems and financial institutions, how fast that's accelerated and blown up, right? That legacy systems have been built in large organizations, small organizations, to manage a threshold of risk. That risk has accelerated and become, tenfold of what it was, which means your solutions have to evolve as well. And now technology has evolved as fast. So you've got to really take a look at the technology that you can use now over, some of the legacy systems. And it's not always a rip and replace. I think people have it in their mind, right? Ooh, there's this new shiny thing, so let's rip out all of this other stuff and pull in this new shiny technology. There's a balance there. So I think, legacy systems of value, of course, right? They got us to where we needed to be. But with new technology, we have to really start to take a look at that, because as the article states, right, the problem's getting bigger, more expensive, and the fraudsters and the criminals are becoming as technological, now I can't say it, savvy as anyone in the market, right?
Yes.
For sure. Well, let's plunge into the fun stuff then, because in fairness, there are some brilliantly shiny, interesting tools on the market, and Alessa kind of makes them. So perhaps you could, teeing you up here to give yourself a bit of a plug, but some of the best solutions are created by third parties, aren't there? That banks can make use of some incredible ready to use solutions such as those made by Alessa. Is that part of the answer for banks to really actually embrace some of the shiny stuff? It's not just hype.
Absolutely. And I think that this is a great opportunity to do that, right? This is a great time to do that, is to take a step back from financial institutions and say, let's look at all of the technology that's out there, right? It can really benefit institutions, whether it's an overlay to a legacy system that helps you manage a little bit faster and better. But also we're seeing the regulators, right, open up and say, give you that, not reassurance, but that you should be looking at technology, where in the past, I think, from a financial institution's perspective, and I've sat on both sides of this, where you're a little bit resistant and you kind of want to wait and see, right? How is the new technology working? I've got to have a specific level of confidence. I think now the door is open, right? The technology is out there to do some amazing things for institutions. And I think you're going to be in big trouble if you just pause and sit back and wait to see what happens.
Gosh, yes. Swagaton, perhaps you could just take us behind the scenes at HSBC. I'm very nosy and curious because HSBC is a phenomenal global organization. So complicated. Well, you guys run something like 50 cores, 7,000 applications. How much of your anti-fraud stuff is done in-house, and how much do you work with third-party providers, if you're able to tell us?
Yeah, so probably I'll stay away from mentioning anything specific to HSBC. But having said that, I think HSBC is quite typical of how organizations of our scale operate in that space. And I think, as you pointed out, the whole build versus buy dilemma hits us all. I think where we are at this point is a sort of a balanced position between those two options. Personally, I have been involved in a number of areas where we have looked to build capabilities in-house, and have also been part of journeys where we have partnered quite effectively with solution providers from outside. I guess what we look for is where does the core capability and competency lie. So usually what we see is that if there is a very niche solution, and particularly information that we can never have from within the bank, and particularly for something like fraud, where the criminals have the obvious upper hand, that they are working across organization and they have the full view of the crime network, but we only get to view a slice of it. Every organization sees a slice of it. So when it comes to mastering information together, I think there is really immense opportunity of using cross-industry collaboration, and vendors play a massive role there. For some of those areas, we focus on our partnership, and then we try to sort of bring things together using in-house infrastructure, if that makes sense.
Fantastic. I'm interested in what these tools are actually doing. I mean, AI is spotting fraud, but how is it spotting fraud? I mean, Grace, you're a great advocate for AI in combating financial crime, but what exactly is it doing in Bank ABC? What is the AI spotting or policing?
Not specifically just in Bank ABC, but what you tend to find with these AI products is they look into patterns.
Okay.
And the way, so when you're talking about customer onboarding, for example, and you're talking about transaction monitoring, AI or technology are able to do that better than any human, because they look at previous behavior. Something that would take a human being about half an hour to look through and walk through false positive and things like that, AI will do it instantaneously. Okay. So when we're talking about operational efficiency, I actually advocate for AI, because when it comes to detecting fraud or any other aspect of financial crime, it's instantaneous. And we live in a world now where, in order to enhance our customers' experience, we need to be on board. We have everything has to be instantaneous. We want to open a bank account, we want it open straight away. We don't want to, it's like within, you go online and you're able to open your bank account straight away. So if that's the case, fraudsters, they are very quick as well. They use quick technology. So we have to employ the use of advanced technology like AI and something like APIs as well, where you can connect existing systems that we have in the bank with external systems provider to enhance the way our system works. So for me, we just have to stay on top of things and make sure that we don't fall behind when it comes to technological advancement.
Okay, fantastic. Holly, perhaps you could shine some light on this, because in theory, AI can do all sorts of things. It can spot, I don't know, there's sort of patterns in the way bank accounts are created. There's linking of accounts. Perhaps you could tell us, a little about Alessa's technology and what it does, and where you feel that AI can really make an impact. In essence, what is it spotting? What's it doing?
Yeah, I think a couple of the comments that were just mentioned, just the ability to use technology to do things a lot faster, also looking across a broader set of data. Grace mentioned we can all go online and open an account instantaneously and start to transact. So can criminals, right? But we really look at it from also the amount of data that an organization has to consume, right? There's using technology to consume that data, make sense of it, and then make sure that you're truly looking at what's a risk to your organization versus all the noise is going to be key. Right? If you think about a financial institutions, right, you have not just the onboarding, but then you have a sanctions, right, that you have to manage from a compliance perspective. You have to manage transaction monitoring. You've also got high, medium risk clients that you treat differently based off of your policy, right? So you've got all of these different pieces, all this data coming into you to, at a pretty rapid pace. You need to bring it all together. And that's where we see the value, right? Is how do we take our technology, bring all of that together for you, and really present you with real risk that you need to pay attention to within your organization, right? That's the goal. I know we've talked about it for a long time in the industry about, the convergence of fraud and AML, right? And then now on digital onboarding. And now technology is allowing us to do that. And we're able to truly, right, say we can give you a 360 view, right? And what does that mean? How is the technology working? How can Grace go and explain to a regulator, I'm confident that my technology and the, AI that sits within it is finding risk, but also I understand the risk that we're, remediating automatically, as an example. And I think that's what's key for us, is using that technology to give everybody a level of confidence and consume more.
For sure. I mean, just because maybe another rude question, when you work with organizations, do you find it easier to work with sort of neobanks and fintechs with an entirely modern stack? Or is there more of a challenge working with banks with the old legacy systems that may date back a decade or two?
So that's an interesting question. And I'll say this, I think where it's a little bit harder with some of the, neobanks and that have the newer technology stack is they come from it from a technology perspective. So you spend more time trying to ground them in the compliance aspect of it, right? Because they're technology first. And coming from the compliance side of things, right, that can make us a little bit nervous, where if you work with financial institutions that have had some legacy systems for a long time, they've been grounded in compliance. So now it's a different discussion, and it's all about educating around the technology. So I think it's just a difference of the conversation and how you go about it. One is really focused more on, yes, we understand you're the best tech, you've got the best tech out there, get it, you're tech first, but now you have to ground that in compliance, right? Versus, okay, you're on some older technology. Let's look at, you're grounded in compliance, but let's show how you can still be grounded from a compliance perspective using some of the new technology that's out there. So it's just a different conversation.
Interesting. Slagaton, I want to ask you an awkward question because you're such a capable guy. I don't want to ask you easy questions. I want to ask you difficult questions. What's going wrong? We've got all this AI. We've got a fortune spent on technology. We've got a regulation book so thick you could knock someone out with it. And yet we've still got, in the UK alone, 1.2 billion fraudsters making merry. Why do we still have so many loopholes? What is going wrong?
Yeah, I'm going to return the awkward question with an awkward or probably controversial answer. So I think there is quite a lot of focus on AI, isn't it? Like we talk about AI quite often in platforms like this. And within the banks and within the wider ecosystem also, there is a lot of drive to sort of, we need to win the AI race and get as much AI as possible. It has become a buzzword. But I think at the core, at the heart of the problem lies the isolated nature of the data streams. I think, Holly, you are talking about. That remains a problem. And for big banks, which obviously have their proportionate share of fraud and financial crime happening through them, would still need to get that right? So we still need to make sure that the AI engine is running on top of a consistent data model. The data from one system is talking to another system through the API that Grace was talking about. None of this is actually part of AI, but this is part of wider technology. But most often we try to jump onto AI before covering the basic foundations. And then we find ourselves in the awkward position that, well, we did everything right and we implemented the best AI solution, but somehow fraudsters are outsmarting us.
Okay, fascinating. Grace, I mean, just same question to you. What is going wrong? So much AI, so many great technologies, and yet the fraud numbers remain huge. I mean, like, to ask the general industry, in a sense, why aren't you guys better in your job? Why have you not eliminated fraud?
I think, and this is personally, I don't think we can ever eliminate fraud. We can try to get to a level whereby fraud is not, maybe it's at 1 or less than 5%, but we're not ever going to be able to eliminate it. And the reason being, you know, the world develops, we're developing technology the same way that financial institutions and technology companies are developing solutions to combat fraud. There are fraudsters out there as well that are making use. Every time, you know, something new comes into the market, there's someone out there that's going to find a way to counter it.
Yeah.
Hence the reason why, you know, it's very important that financial institutions stays relevant in terms of technological advancement. But what is wrong right now is the fact that most banks, and I would say most banks, they are sitting on legacy systems. And within the bank, you will have different areas. They use their own different systems. But one system, as Swatson said earlier, is not talking to the other. So already you have data issue. So the first thing is to try and ensure we have good quality data. And that should be from the very outset when we onboard our customers. So the information we gather during the onboarding process should be the central, should be the focal information, where the other systems can grab the same information so that you don't end up in, you know, you have a systems in risk and the spelling of the person's name is different. Like my name, for example, is very easy to get my surname wrong. You can put the E in the wrong place. So this happens. So you could end up within the same bank, about 4 different systems being used with different spelling of the same person's name in there. You know, so I think
just ask a question. This is I'm currently in Estonia, where everyone has an ID card. They have one number across 3,000 services, and that is biometrically linked. You can vote that way, and you can log in into your bank the same way you vote. It makes it incredibly hard to impersonate somebody else. I mean, we're currently talking bank systems. Isn't there a problem with with a social system that you're dealing with a kind of amorphous mass of people, and it's incredibly hard to crack down on sort of identity impersonation because the government is not doing its job. Grace, what do you think?
I wouldn't say the government are not doing their job. I would say there needs to be more cooperation between the private and public sector. You know, it cannot just be left to financial institution to solve this problem. It's bigger than any financial institution, but we all have to work
together. Help, Estonian style?
You know,
single ID for every citizen with, you know, biometric ID. How much fraud would that eliminate?
It would go a long way, but I'll still believe that some people will still be able to crack it.
Okay.
Yeah, some people will be able to make a duplication. I don't know. we have to do as much as we can. If you don't try, you don't know. I mean, you said in Estonia, how are you finding it? Maybe I need to throw the question back at you. How
It is fantastic. I
you
cannot
think it's
exaggerate how
working?
good it is. It's, yeah, they should
Is
have a
it
podcast
working so
about
that
Estonia
we
where they
can go
brag
that
about
way?
how successful they are. No
Okay.
one has yet cracked it, and the Russians are, number one, anyway, number two after Ukraine. Number one is Estonia. They're on the border, and they experience wave after wave of cyber attacks. The Russians have not yet cracked it, so maybe there's a lesson for that. But Holly, perhaps I could turn to you. It sounds as if you guys are saying, this is a question of upgrading legacy systems. That if you do have great data management, you do have great technology, you can crack down on fraud. So perhaps I could look at the return on investment here. I mean, a board's being a little bit negligent here, penny wise, pound foolish, that if they actually invested in upgraded systems, they could eliminate swathes of fraud. I mean, what is the return on investment in buying products?
I think that's a big thing for organizations, right? Is to look at it from a return on investment perspective. I think far too often, right, when we sit on the compliance side, often we're, seen as a cost center. And I think you've got to be able to change that conversation internally. And Charles, you're absolutely right. There is a huge return on investment for looking at new technology. If you think about some of the very basic things that we all talk about, right? False positives, as an example. If you eliminate a certain percent and a very small percent of false positives, the ROI on that you have from just simply using newer technology is significant. Not only does it pay for itself, but you're also gaining, right? When you go through that. Right. That's one of the things that we personally work with clients. That's an initial discussion. It's understanding, what are you using today from a technology perspective? Let's go through what Alessa has to offer. But then at the end of that discussion, let's talk about what your return on investment is, because that's critical to your boards. It's critical to your C-suite. And you're going to have to present that, right? With any solution that you bring in, you're going to have to explain, especially in these times, right? Why would I make an investment? Why not just stay as is? And I think when you look at it from an ROI perspective, staying as is not going to work in your favor. And you can really highlight how, from a compliance perspective, right, you could be more than just a cost center to the organization. It's critical.
Sure. It certainly is costly, and certainly just a difficult. I mean, Swagatum, HSBC, you mentioned, was it a 3 to 5 year roadmap you have of upgrading? I mean, that's just a phenomenally involved project. Just give us an idea of how complex it is trying to upgrade these systems.
Yeah, and the first thing that sort of popped into my mind when Holly was talking about ROI, one of the biggest challenge that we have got in terms of how we manage programs like this is that we always look for in-year ROI, which is always has to be short-term focused. So when we have to prioritize things, we would always have to hit a balance between things that are going to pay dividend over the years. Maybe after 3 years, it's going to start to pay dividend, like investing into data and investing into integration across system, which in itself is not going to pay dividend on the first year, but probably going to pay dividend in the third year. But we would always have to mix it up with things that are going to pay benefit this year. So that is always a challenge, and in this particular case, probably we have been lucky because we have got the investment for 3 years. But in most of the cases that I have seen really good investment ideas that do not make the mile, because we are always looking for ROI in year, and we always end up doing something that is probably superficial, that is probably going to give us marginal benefit, but give benefit in near term. So that I think is a perennial challenge that we have to sort of deal with as we work through these items.
It's calculating ROI sounds complicated because any fraud that is successful funds the fraudsters, and the moment they've realized they've struck oil, the resources skyrocket and they can spend more and more on exploiting banks. So how do you go about calculating ROI? I mean, it must be multi-year, it must be kind of multivariate. That's a complicated job for someone. There must be some team of management consultants all beavering away on spreadsheets. But, what do you think, Swagatum? Is that you can't rely on a single number, can you? It's a kind of there's many possibilities branching out when it comes to calculating ROI.
Yeah, in this case, the army of consultant that you are talking about is me. But
Okay.
but it's the right point. So it is complex because there are multifaceted benefit and multifaceted cost line that we are impacting from a program of that size. The benefit could be in terms of pure cost saving, which again, to Holly's point, thinking of ourselves as cost center, we could show that we are reducing unproductive cases that are being sent through. The benefit could also be from the first line perspective, wherein we can show that we are able to actively identify more frauds or more financial crime through this process, and hence make the RM's job more effective, and they don't have to spend time and effort into unproductive leads, but they can focus on the right leads. But showing that from end to end is a complex thing, and we have been doing that for 6 to 8 months now to bring together the full picture of the benefit.
Fantastic. Now, guys, we have a question. I think it's a good question from John Stevenson in the audience. Because we're talking about AI often works in ways that are difficult to decipher. And he quite rightly says, AI may be spotting fraud, but where are we with explainability? If the AI ML flags someone, we have to be able to explain the decision-making, surely. Can you always do this? I mean, Grace, Bank ABC flags someone. Can you always say exactly why that account has been flagged and what the underlying logic is?
Yes, you should be able to. What you have to bear in mind, this technological system, you have scenarios, they're scenario-based. So if within a scenario you've explained what you're looking for, then it should be able to flag up any inconsistencies. So when you have situations like that, it's very easy to explain why it's been flagged up. Then it's up to the analyst to review and ensure that the rationale provided is accurate, and you fine-tune your systems accordingly. Okay,
fantastic. Holly, your systems are transparent, I take it, when something's flagged, your users know why?
Yes. So that's a big thing, and look, it's near and dear to my heart. So we've got it within the organization and the technology itself, right? Explainability is huge. And I think one thing that Swagatum said earlier, right, was AI is used as a buzzword a lot of times, right, without really understanding what is it that it means, right? And I think everybody needs to take a look at what exactly does that mean to you and your organization? What does it mean in the context of the technology that you're looking at? Because explainability is huge. Nobody on this call or sitting here, right, wants to sit in front of a regulator and say, I don't know, the AI did it, right? That's just not an acceptable answer. So you have to have that explainability. And for us personally, that's big, right? How are we using AI? How are we using machine learning? There are absolutely scenarios, right? And we are very transparent in exactly, right, what was auto-resolved as an example, right? What did the system automatically resolve as a false positive? You have to be able to explain why it did it, how it did it, and have a level of confidence that it's auto-resolving the right things. Exactly the same as when you do get something brought to your attention. So I think to that question, right, that was asked, I think it's also important that any compliance team, any compliance-focused organization, make sure as you're looking at new technology, ask, what's the explainability? If it's all about AI, there's got to be explainability in there.
That's nice. And Swagatum, I mean, HSBC probably has the resources to do that and to vote people to figuring out, unpicking the AI and ML tools that are being used. But I just wonder whether you think maybe at smaller banks, they don't have the resources to do that. Unpicking any sort of machine learning model is fantastically difficult. Even the designers sometimes shrug a bit and say, well, it's a self-learning model. It teaches itself things, they don't fully understand it. Do you think there's going to be a problem in the future with maybe smaller organizations relying on AI and ML without really understanding what it's doing at its core?
No, I think that absolutely. Is it going to be a problem to sort of embrace AI, ML without actually understanding what is going on behind the scene in the black box way? It is absolutely going to be a problem for wider scalability of the solution. And obviously, regulators expect us to know what we are doing, and not just to Holly's point, not just to leave it for the machine to decide. What we have done on our side is that we have actually seen quite a lot of different types of models, and I think there is a perception about what is AI or what is machine learning. Not everything that is being told is machine learning is machine learning. For example, we have had rules-based and scenarios-based models, which are models but not machine learning models. So explainability is much easier for those. To Grace's point, so it's very clear what logic is going into it. But now that we have transitioned onto true machine learning models for last 5 to 6 years, we have now industrialized the process, which is the interesting bit. So it's not per model somebody is reviewing the model and coming up with a view of explainability. We have embedded that into our model development lifecycle, so that there is no model that is being built, machine learning or otherwise, that goes without an explainability feature. And even at an individual case level, we should be able to tell that this particular customer we created an alert on because of these 3 different reasons.
Fantastic. And just to, as we slowly move towards conclusion, one assumption I had that's been blown to bits really is that upgrading everything is compulsory. Not the case seems to be the consensus. There can be a balance between legacy systems and upgrading. I mean, Grace, what do you think? Is that right? You don't have to upgrade everything. You don't have to rip everything out. But yeah, with the theme of this talk is overhauling existing systems, that you don't need to break the bank and overhaul everything.
I think you need to understand the usefulness of your current system. And obviously, the part of it that no longer works for you, then that can be modernized. We've got the use of modern technology now that you could combine your existing technology with new ones. I won't necessarily say throw everything out of the door and start all over again. It just depends what works for you. You would know which system currently works for you and which one doesn't. And you would know which ones that does work, but you need to enhance on it.
Okay.
Ultimately, you need to embrace new technology.
Okay, so it's a focused approach.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Yes.
I mean, that does sound reasonable. So I get a slightly different question for you, maybe. You know, with unlimited resources, to what degree could you cut fraud to zero, near zero? To what degree is this a question of firepower in terms of financial expenditure, or are the fraudsters always going to sort of be there no matter what you spend?
Yeah, I'll probably answer it in a different way. So obviously, it's very, very difficult to quantify how much we can cut down on. But given the trend that we have got now today, the key challenge that we have got is that the fraudsters' runway to adopt new technology is seemingly much faster than most of us, because we have to sort of go through the process. But the fraudsters and the financial criminals can adopt technology. Like, for example, the other day I was looking into a news where people are using some of the conversational AI, which is sort of filling the market right these days, to bypass the digital check in the onboarding process and creating synthetic identity. But how soon can we adopt the technologies that we probably implemented? I think more than resources, it's a question of intent and agility of how quickly we can adopt technology that is absolutely needed.
That makes sense. So it's not just about budget, it's about speed, because it's a foot race. Just final question, therefore, for you guys. Holly, if there was a trend you would like to point people to, I would like our viewers and listeners to understand, what it is they should go away and research and pay attention to. Is there some advice you can give our viewers, some trend or some technology you think they should go away and research?
Yeah, look, I think there's the trend has accelerated now because of technology. Is you now have the ability to look across your organization and consume more data across your organization that can be very useful for compliance teams by using that technology and bringing it together. I'm a firm believer, right? Having a true 360 view of a customer or prospective customer is going to be significant in not only us truly wanting to fight financial crime, not just, work through false positives, but truly fight financial crime and also be able to react a lot faster, right? Because fraudsters aren't going away, right? They're going to find a new way to exploit the system, but the ability to see that quickly across your organization and react, that's what really starts to scale it down.
Fantastic. Grace, perhaps you could pass some sort of advice to our viewers and listeners. What trend would you say they really pay attention to?
I actually concur with Ollie. I'm a big advocate for being able to see the customer's experience end to end. So from the onboarding to the transaction history, the sanction, all the process, the credit history, everything. So the system, we need to have a clear view of who our customer is, what transactions they are involved in, how does that affect us as a bank? And in terms of, from a financial crime perspective, can we see clearly patterns, behaviors, which we can then use to help us in assessing whether any transaction is unusual or not. So for me, it's a good idea to be able to have an end-to-end process where you can see everything. Definitely.
Fantastic. And
So
that's a question for you. Our viewers and listeners would love to be able to spend some time with you and, Vulcan mind meld all the knowledge out of your brain. They can't do that, unfortunately. But what advice can you pass on to them? What should they go away and research if they really want to excel in their career at combating financial crime? What trend can you point to?
Yeah, my advice would be to go away and research and continue to do that, because as Grace and Holly said, any trend that we can talk about today is going to melt away, and there will be new trends coming in. But I think it's a key thing to keep in mind that we need to continue to research and find out new things that are happening. Probably some of the examples right now that is on the top of my mind would be, as I said, most challenge that we face is in terms of visibility of fraud, and we always look at a very narrow angle of the entire crime landscape. Some of the things that I'm quite interested right now is to see how we could scale across the market and try and bring together a view of activities in a holistic way. There are some very interesting work going on using blockchain technology that can start to provide that view. So right now I'm researching on that, but tomorrow I might be researching on something else.
That is excellent advice. So be a born researcher. Never stop researching, never stop learning, which I hope our viewers and listeners have done a little bit today. So my panel, thank you so much for your expertise. It's been an education for me. I've changed my mind on a number of things. So to Grace, to Holly, to Swagatam, thank you so much for your time. To our viewers, we're back again next Tuesday, 4 p.m. UK time. We're looking at Know Your Customer, how automation can really perfect your KYC processes. We've got some amazing speakers, so I hope you join us. But from Holly, Grace, Swagatam, and myself, FinTech Talk, it's goodbye. So thank you very much for joining us.